Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1999 drama film Body Shots. Now, this is a film that actually I had heard of before. I think it's a movie that I saw on DVD at a local resale store here in Vancouver. And I always remember the price being ridiculous. So I was like, yeah, I'm not going to spend that much on Body Shots. And so it's not a film that I ever really uh decided to seek out, or even a movie that I really was that curious about when it comes to like the plot or anything. I just remember seeing the DVD, and the resale shop was selling it for a ridiculous price tag, and just laughed. And it was, like, there for years. I think it was still there even, before the store eventually closed. Like, the last time I went there, before they closed, it was still there. So that's really, what my only recollection or memory of this movie was just, the DVD, that I always passed on, and always passed by whenever I went to a local resale shop called, Buybacks. Um, so other than that, not very familiar with this film at all. And after watching it, yeah, I can see why this is an obscure movie. I can see why this is a film that doesn't really have a lot of people talking about it, and why it didn't do that well when it came out in 1999. It's not very good. I'm not gonna say that it's a completely worthless or like a shot of piss, but it's still not a good movie. Now, before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on Body Shots, I would like to give a special shout out to Brock for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. Link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. So, Body Shots is directed by Michael Cristofer. And prior to this film, his directorial debut was a film called Gia. It was a made-for-TV movie. I think it aired on HBO. I think it starred Angelina Jolie in one of her first like major breakout roles, not named Cyborg 2. And this is the kind of direction that I like to call straight out of film school directing, where you have a director who is hot out of film school, just got done either the year before or a couple years prior, and really wants to show their stuff. And because they don't have a ton of experience when it comes to shooting a lot of films, or a lot of different kinds of films from different genres, all they really know is how to frame a shot, or different sort of techniques, but they don't really necessarily know how to properly implement them throughout the runtime, throughout the entire film. And so what you get is a film that at points has some impressive direction by Christopher, in terms of his techniques that he's utilizing for the film, with the pans or the zooms or the different sort of camera angles, or the usage of slow mo, and faster camera processes, and other stuff like that. But because of the fact that he's got this straight out of film school approach, there are a lot of moments in this where his direction just seems like there really isn't a lot of direction in terms of where things should go or where things should fit. So you get a lot of moments in Body Shots where you get shots that just seem like they're at random, and they're just slung at you throughout the film, and they can be rather jarring at points. Kind of take you out of the movie when it comes to the direction, because of just how uh, out of place some of the director's stylistic choices are. Now, the direction I think is definitely not the best, but at least it has moments where it really showcases some sense of skill. Like, it has moments where it can provide an interesting camera angle or a different sort of approach or technique that adds to the film and keeps your interest. I can't really say the same about the screenplay. This script is an absolute mess. This is a drunken mess by David McKenna. And this might be his worst script because this is the same guy who wrote American History X before this. After this, he wrote the Get Carter remake and Blow and Bully. And, yeah, he wrote SWAT, but I wouldn't necessarily say the script was that bad. He also wrote a film called Cocaine Godmother. And yeah, he wrote Embattled, that movie that came and went in 2020 with Steven Dorff. It's another like generic UFC cage fighting movie. But this still stands out as his just drunken mess of a script. It really does have this overall feel of a really bad bender because it's just all over the place. It has this weird structure, for one, where it's split up into different sections and they are titled in ways that tie into the drinking experience or sex. So you have stuff like foreplay and afterplay and all this other stuff, and it's very pretentious and laughable if you ask me. Uh, and because of this approach, it just leads to the film having a really bad flow to it because everything is just so fractured in terms of the way that the story is being told. And on top of that, you just get a lot of just moments that just really do not seem to be that cohesive at all. It's almost as if the entire film is like you're trying to recollect some things that happened when you were on a drunken binge, and maybe that's the point, but it just makes for a really hard film to watch and a hard film to get into because it's just so out there and weird and off-putting and off kilter and just stumbling around from scene to scene. It starts out with this girl who is I'm just gonna look up the synopsis again. So yeah, it starts out after a night of clubbing with these 20 somethings, and you have Jane and Rick. They wake up in bed together. Rick gets up, takes a piss. Afterwards, he and Jane, they're having a hard time remembering what happened that night. Uh, and they wind up getting woke up in the morning by Jane's friend Sarah, who is bleeding from her lip and her forehead because she slipped and fell and hit her face prior to her getting into the house because she was drunk. Um, and what happens is she winds up accusing this pro football player for the Raiders named Michael, who is, I believe, uh, friends with Rick, or Rick is his agent, and she accuses him of rape. And by the way, all of this happens like later on in the movie because it's got this weird ass structure where it starts out with everything being out of order and out of place. One of the first shots of the film is a guy getting up and taking a piss. Then there is the scene with him and this other girl in the bed. Then you quick cut to a shot of Sarah driving around while clearly intoxicated in the rain, and then opening the car door and puking. And then after a lot of that, you get random interview segments as if this is a documentary where the characters are talking to the camera, and it's interesting, but it doesn't fit. It's just another element of this movie that's very jarring and just doesn't really coalesce together. And every time these interview segments come up, they're so unnatural. The dialogue is laughably pretentious. I mean, or just stupid. Like nobody talks this way. Like for instance, this is an actual quote from this script. You have this character named Trent who is friends with Rick and Michael, and this is what he says on camera in an interview segment without an interviewer, because it's that kind of movie. Um, and he just is talking about orgasms, and he's just like, a woman has an orgasm. It's like a fucking earthquake, right? I was doing this one chick named Bertha once, and I swear to God, it was like a 7.5. It's like I'm looking at my dick going, Jesus Christ, why can't you do that? And I'm like, who talks like that? Especially about about their orgasm or about their dick. It was just a really unnatural, weird line of dialogue, and there's so many lines like that in this script that are trying desperately to be clever, but honestly, when you look at them, it just turns into something that is just so laughably pretentious and ridiculous that it's hard to take seriously. And I think in some ways it's supposed to be comedic, but because the tone is just all over the place, you can't really necessarily point out or find what moments are supposed to be funny and what moments are not. So it leads to some moments where I don't even think it's intended to be funny, but it just winds up being that way because of just how bad the tone is. I mean, there's an entire scene that just randomly pops up after one of the characters mentions about a blowjob class. Yes, a fellatio class. And then it just cuts to a bunch of women sucking off dildos in a blowjob class. But it's not a class that's featuring any of the characters from the film. It's just a bunch of random women we've never seen before and we never see again. So the random cutaways are distracting. And then you have a really long middle that is just incredibly boring, that has the boys and the girls, and they go to this club and they dance and they get drunk. The only time that you ever wake up from this just sheer amount of boredom is when there is like a fight scene between Michael and this a movie star, because Michael got pissed off that the guy bumped into him, or Michael bumped into him and then he got pissed off and started the fight, and then they took the fight outside. And after that, then it turns into an after school special about date rape. That's really what it turns into. It turns into a film that has all these different perspectives of Michael and his view of what happened, and then Sarah and her view of what happened, and the reactions from Sarah's friends to the accusation, and the reactions of Michael's friends, and Sarah's friend and Michael's friend collaborating with their friends to determine what the accused, what their friends who are going to be involved in this legal case should say when they're on trial. And then it just turns out to be a hung jury anyway. And you don't really see the trial or anything. All you see is like some stock footage of the city and audio from some fake radio broadcast where they mention the case. And then like Rick winds up getting together with Sarah's friend Jane. So Rick and Jane get together at the end because Rick got on the phone at one point while this whole rape case was going on and tried to let Jane know that he still hopes that maybe there's a chance that he could be with her. And like the end of the movie is like something straight out of a rom-com, and it just is another bit of just tonal whiplash. I do appreciate that the writer had things be ambiguous though when it comes to what actually happened with the rape. That was a different take on things, and especially when it comes to it being very honest about both of them being blackout drunk when it happened, and then the next day not remembering anything. So when they're asking them like what happened, and then they're like I don't know. What do you mean you don't know? You said that this happened. You said that this happened and then that happened. I really don't remember because they were blackout drunk. But other than that, and maybe like a couple funny moments with the Trent character. Like there's a whole scene where he sneaks into the club, the same club that all the characters are at for a excruciating long amount of time. At least that's what it feels like. And he winds up getting drunk, and then he winds up like sleeping in the gutter somewhere in the city, and he winds up getting woken up by a car crash, and he's so plastered and shit-faced drunk that yeah, he gets woken up by the car crash and the car alarm, but he just punches the headlight to make the alarm go off and then goes back to sleep. And then he winds up getting picked up by an ambulance because they thought that he was the one that got thrown from the car. That was a moment that I didn't mind, and there were a couple other moments that I was like, okay, there's a clever line of dialogue, or that was kind of fun, but there's not enough of that. A lot of it's very serious and just very soap opera when it comes to its writing, with like this one guy who was dating Sarah. I'm trying to remember this actor's name. Um I think I think it's Sean, I think. Yeah, it's Sean. So this character named Sean, and he he was dating Sarah, and he's, I guess, supposedly he's friends with Rick and Trent. I don't think he knows Michael that well, but he was okay with Sarah going with Michael, but then he feels guilty later when Sarah says that she was raped by him, and his whole arc just feels like it doesn't really go anywhere, and it seems like he's just a third wheel almost in this group of friends. That's what it seems like, even though he's supposedly not, and it's Trent. like, well, at least Trent has some fun lines. At least Trent is a fun character. This guy just seems like he's straight out of Days of Our Lives or the OC. And if it sounds like it's not much, it's because it isn't much. Random, out of place interview segments about sex and about going clubbing and going out and drinking, and then an after school special about date rape. That's what Body Shots is. That's what it is. It's like it really is like the cinematic equivalent of drinking a really like bad shot of alcohol. You know, the kind of shot that makes you wince and it like burns going down and you just go, you know, that kind of thing. It's that kind of experience. And the script really does make you feel that way. I don't know what the hell New Line was thinking with their marketing for this. There are movies that define every decade. Like Body Shots? How many shots were you drinking, New Line, when you came up with that tagline for this movie of all things? A film that made what, $752,000 in the box office? I don't even think it got a wide release. How is this going to define a decade if it didn't even get a wide release in theaters? So, yeah, the script is just it's not very good. It really isn't. It has its moments, but it really is a just a drunken mess. The cast, I would say the cast is one of the film's strongest suits. There's some good performances in this, especially from Jerry O'Connell and Tara Reid of all people. Sean Patrick Flanery, he plays Rick. He's okay, but his character just spends most of the movie pining for a Jane and dealing with his friend Jerry O'Connell, uh, and you know his bullshit. You know, Michael. So he just spends a lot of the movie just dealing with Michael's shit and trying to get him to think straight for the trial and everything. So he's really not given that much to do. He doesn't even have that many segments where he's talking to the camera either. Jerry O'Connell, though, uh, he plays a great douchebag in this. Like, this is a guy who is just a total uh, dick who you totally would buy date raping somebody and then trying to act like he didn't do anything wrong and she just wanted it. And his acting is honestly really good, especially in the scene when he's being questioned by the police that night, and he's just super charismatic and kind of funny in the way that he's describing the events, but you just know that it reeks of bullshit. And then later on, when his head clears and he's trying to remember things and he can't remember, uh, Jerry did a great job believably showing that as well when it comes to the emotion and just the look on his face. And overall, yeah, I think it's a good performance by Jerry as Michael. I would probably say it's one of the more underrated performances of his career. And speaking of underrated performances, Tara Reid is terrific. She's tremendous in this as Sarah. Like, this is her best performance as an actress. I think this film should be seen probably at least once, despite my issues with it, just so you can see that Tara Reid could actually act. There's a scene where she's tearfully talking about her being raped while she's in the hospital, and her dad is there, and the cops are there, and her friends are there, and it's a really good bit of acting by her, and it's just a great performance all around by Tara Reid, showcasing her angst and her anger at her own actions, and her trying to, stretch the truth in a way, by her description of things and leaving stuff out and not necessarily wanting to admit that she got blackout drunk numerous times and that she could have gotten blackout drunk again with Michael. And it's just a genuinely tremendous performance by her. And it's a damn shame that this wasn't seen by enough people, so then that allowed her to get out of this typecasting that she was in, as playing the dumb bimbo who's just horny and or dumb. She really showed that she could actually act and not just be there for sex appeal. Amanda Peet was all right as Jane. Her issue was the same as Sean Patrick Flanery's because their characters were very one note for the most part, maybe two note. They had one note, which was them falling for each other and wanting to proceed with the relationship and to go further with things. But after the rape, they weren't quite sure if it was the right time. But they left things on ice, so to speak, maybe to come back to it later. Then heat things up again, and the second note is the same as Rick. She's just trying to get Sarah prepared for the trial and the kind of questions that she's going to be asked. Um, Ron Livingston was a lot of fun. Uh, he definitely brought a little bit of that office space charm to this, but I felt it worked for the character. He's the kind of guy that, despite the fact that he's a massive fuck up, like he still finds a way to get laid and still finds a way to have fun. And he's creative when it comes to the ways that he'll like get into the club even though they won't let him in. And he's the most entertaining character in the movie. Like I wish that character was in a different movie in a different script that was more honestly a lot more fun to watch because I think that character would be even better if he had someone to play off of that wasn't just you know Sean, who's just like, yeah bro, okay, yeah, cool, what happened, man, like what you got, you slept in the alley last night, that guy. Which, by the way, Brad Rowe, who plays Sean, like he sucked. Like I would say that guy was like terrible. Like that guy was pretty awful. Just very bland, just no personality. I was honestly like, really? This is the best guy you could get? It almost seemed like he was a dollar store. A dollar store is too kind. It's like he was a yard sale of Brad Pitt, like a 50 cent or 25 cent, a quarter of a Brad Pitt. And they're like, oh, well, he kind of looks like Brad Pitt, so I don't know, give him the role. It was just it was a thankless role, to be fair, and there wasn't much there for the actor to work with. But what the actor was delivering was was bad. It was like a really rancid uh um shot of tequila. Now there's also Emily Proctor who plays Whitney and Sybil Temchichin who plays Emma, who are like Sarah's other friends, and they're all right. But really, the main actors and actresses in this that deliver some genuinely good performances that honestly kept me watching the film despite me being so completely out of it and not really being that fully invested in it because of the weird way that the story was being told and the interview segments and the cutaways and the boring story about 20 somethings having sex and going to clubs and getting drunk was the performances by Jerry O'Connell, Tara Reid, and Ron Livingston. Now, the cinematography by Rodrigo Garcia, at points it looks nice. At other points, it looks like a commercial. It looks like a TV commercial. And I don't think that was the right look for this movie. The editing by Eric A. Sears, at points, it's excellent. At other points, it's anything but. It's almost like he was editing it while he was drunk. So, yeah, it's a film that has a lot of issues. The score is also not that good by Mark Isham. Like this is a composer who's done some really good music. You know, he was nominated for the Academy Award for A River Runs Through It. Um and he's done a lot of other scores, that I really liked in terms of his career. Like he did the score for The Hitcher, which is a great score. He did the score for Point Break, Cool World, Fire in the Sky. It's another good score by him. Time Cop, Waterworld. Like he's a good composer. Blade, but this was like he was on autopilot, and really didn't put that much thought into it or that much care. And honestly, I can't blame him considering what this movie is. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on Body Shots. It's something that I would say if the concept interests you, you like the trailer, you really want to see if Tara Reid can actually act, and you're a big fan of like Ron Livingston or Jerry O'Connell, maybe give it at least one watch. Maybe give it at least one shot. But other than that, nah. I would say this is definitely one that I would probably pass on. Like you would, pass on the last girl at the bar, during last call. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on Body Shots. And until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.